Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to understand how to work with basic formulas in Excel. One of the most important abilities of Excel is working with formulas because formulas help us do calculations faster and more efficiently. So in this video, we will look at basic mathematical operations like sum, product, and average, and also understand how to work with constant values properly. So let's get started. As you can see on the screen, I have some sample data. I have input 1, input 2, and one constant value. What I want to calculate is the sum of input 1 and 2, the sum including the constant, the product, and the average. First, let's understand how formulas work in Excel. Every, form- every formula in Excel starts with an equal to sign. So to calculate the sum, I type equal. I select the first input cell, plus. I select the second input cell, and I then press enter. Excel calculates the sum and shows the result in the cell. If you look at the formula bar, you will notice that Excel is using cell references and not actual numbers. You might ask, why don't we just type the numbers directly? For example, instead of selecting cells, I could just type 3 plus 56. That will give me the correct result. But now, let's say I change the input value from 3 to 4. You will notice that the result does not update automatically under sum. That's the reason we always use cell references. When we reference cells, Excel automatically updates the result whenever the input changes. This makes the calculations dynamic and reliable. Now, let's say I want to calculate the sum for multiple rows. Instead of writing the formula again, I take my cursor to the bottom right corner of the cell. The cursor changes to a plus sign. I click and drag. Excel automatically calculates a sum for all rows. This is one of the biggest strengths of Excel. Now, let's add the constant value to our input. I write is equal to, I select input 1 plus select input 2 plus select the constant. When I press enter, the first result looks correct. But when I drag the formula down, the result becomes incorrect. Why? Because Excel is automatically shifting the constant cell reference. Now let's see how to add a constant value to our calculation. First, I start with an equals to sign. Then I select input 1. After that, I add a plus sign. Next, I select input 2. Again, I add a plus sign. And finally, I select the cell that contains my constant value. Now I press enter. At first glance, the result looks absolutely correct. What happens when I drag the formula? And this is where a problem appears. The results are no longer correct. Why is this happening? Because Excel is automatically changing the constant cell reference when I drag the formula. Excel assumes that every cell reference should move down along with the formula. But in this case, that constant value is supposed to stay the same for all the rows. we need B12 to be constant for all the 8 entries. And to fix this, we use the dollar sign. The dollar sign tells Excel to lock a cell so that it does not move when the formula is copied. So I go back to the formula, I keep the input 1 and 2 as they are, but for the constant cell I add a dollar sign. And I press enter again. Now when I drag the formula down, notice what happens. The input value changes row by row, but the constant value stays the same. As a result, every row now adds the same constant value and all the calculations are correct. Okay, so now let me share a consulting level Excel trick. In real businesses and consulting work, we never hard code numbers inside formulas. Instead, we always keep assumptions separate. For example, I have a table which has the revenue, the growth rate, and the updated revenue. Say the revenue is 10K and we assume that the growth rate is 10%. So the formula that we'll be using to calculate the updated revenue is nothing but revenue into 1 plus growth rate. What we do is we take the revenue into 1 plus, take the growth rate, and we log the growth rate. Close the bracket and press enter. Now, when I change this 10% say to 15, the updated revenue automatically will get updated in the future date. So revenue is an input, your growth rate, this 15% is an assumption, and formula uses cell reference only. What if the growth rate becomes 15? You can change one cell and the entire model updates. Now let's come back to this. Let's calculate the product. Again, start with equal to. Select the first cell, input 1. Use the multiplication symbol. Select the second cell, input 2. And multiply with a fixed constant. Now, why are we getting a 0 here? Because we haven't fixed the sum constant. So again, we press F4, fix it, press an enter, and then drag it again. And similarly for average, we will use the sum, divide the number of values. So is equal to, take the sum, divided by 2. And if we want to calculate the average of some product, then is equal to sum product divided by 3. Again, drag this and drag this. So both the methods work as long as the constant cell is fixed properly. I hope this was clear. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you.